Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be taking a look at an article from BBC News. Now this is written by Matt McGrath and from what it looks like published on March 12th. The title here, Climate Change, Default Effect Sees Massive Green Energy Switch. Now, if this was just an idea of like people chose to switch on their own, which is what the title kind of implies, that would be one thing. But this is not that type of situation. These people got switched and they didn't switch back for whatever reason, type of ideas how they're trying to play it. And then they're making assumptions. Oh, well, they're just willing to pay more money. I'm guessing there were other factors involved that have led to them not switching. Like, oh, they might not know. There might be like a bunch of hoops to jump through, things like that to prevent them from going back from to going towards less green energy. I bet you, because they're just trying to make it sound like, oh, it was just a switch and they're more than willing to just pay the extra money. No, that's not what happened here, I'm sure. Look at the lead-in. When Swiss energy companies made green electricity the default choice, huge numbers of consumers were happy to stick with it, even though it cost them more. They were happy to stick with it even though it cost them more. Who the hell in this world gets happy paying more money for something? I know I don't. I know the majority of people in this world don't. But they want to portray it like they were just more than happy to do it. Sure they were. Okay, and by making it their default choice, when you sign up for electrical service, you're paying the higher price. You're paying for the green energy. They automatically give it to you, whether you want it or not. That's what they're doing here. But hey, let's just ignore that. So, because they're not telling you what's involved on switching back, if it's, a no process or if it's involves jumping through hoops or whatever. They just want you to take at face value. These people were just happy. They were just happy to take green energy by default and pay more money. Anyway, let's get into the article. 4 years after the switch, researchers found that around 80% of customers were still on green tariffs. This default effect happened partly because people didn't want the hassle of switching back to fossil fuels. I'm sure that's in large part what it was. See, they're trying to play that down. That's why they're doing it right off the bat. They don't want to look at that. They're just like, yep, at first, it happened partly because of this, but just ignore that. I mean, this is so sad. It happened partly because they're just trying to dismiss this. No, it happened in large part because I'm sure they made it almost impossible to switch to the cheaper, more fossil fuel mixed energy option. I would bet money on it. See, they're trying to play it like, oh, these people are just happy to do it. No big deal. Just a small amount, it happened partly, it just happened a little bit, because of those people that just didn't want to deal with the hassle. I'm sure it's more along the lines of it's near impossible to switch, but hey, whatever. The authors say the idea could have a big impact on global emissions of CO2. So forcing people to pay a tariff for green energy, because they're making you pay for the privilege, more money, to be using green energy. It's not necessarily the cost is more because they're calling it a tariff. So you're paying more money. They're putting a tariff on it. So you're getting surcharged additional money for that energy. This is like the idea of slipping a carbon tax through the back door. That's kind of what this is. In the study, the researchers looked at what happened when two Swiss energy suppliers changed the default electricity offering for their customers from a mixture of fuels to renewables only. This change affected around 234,000 private households and 9,000 businesses. Before the switch, the numbers choosing to have green power were at around 3%. Afterwards, this rose to 80 to 90% of customers. Well, of course it did, because you forced them into it, and a lot of these people saw the friggin' hassle and the bullshit and went, I ain't dealing with that. I'm sure that's what happened. And the thing is, that remaining, say, 10 to 20% that went back to the switch, I'm looking at it as a fact that they kind of had the New Englander mentality, okay, where it's a matter of principle. I will cut off my nose to spite my face because principle matters. If you have nothing but your principles, you know, because how do I put this? Because you might not have a lot of things in this world, all right, say as a New Englander, but you have your principles. You have your honor, okay? And if something is a matter of principle to you, okay, you will cut your nose off to spite your face as a New Englander. A lot of us are like that. We aren't going to back down on something if it's a matter of principle. So anyway, moving on. Residential consumers had to pay at least 3 to 8% more for their energy on the green tariff, while businesses saw their costs increase up to 14% for energy used at night. Now, you might not think 3 to 8% isn't much, but let's just do easy math. We'll just say 10%. So if you're paying $100 a month, which is cheap for electricity here, here in the U.S. for most people, every month you're paying that 10%. So we'll say $100, we'll say 8%. So you're paying another $8 every month. So they're getting off of you. You're like, oh, well, that isn't a lot. But if you're a person who's, at a point where you're just getting by, because electricity is way more expensive in Europe. You have to take that into account too. If you're someone who's scraping by and that $8 a month adds up, so you figure 10 months, that's $80. All right. You're at $96 at a year. Now that $100 could be a week of eating. Something like that. They're paying way more, so they're trying to play like, oh, it's just 8%. But if your electric bill works out to be $200-300 a month, that really adds up. And then 14% for energy used at night for businesses? What if you're a business that employs people on multiple shifts? So now you have to run your operations at night. You need electricity. That 14% cuts into your bottom line and your ability to be profitable, to employ people. And they're just like, nothing to see here. It's perfectly good. They were more than happy to pay this. Bullshit. Remarkably, these extra costs weren't enough to push consumers to change their tariffs back to ones with fossil fuels in the mix. Well, here's the thing. They're not saying if there was a bunch of hoops to jump through, which I'm sure there was, because if you're going to screw someone and make them pay more money, this is like the idea of, I bet you, they got you they got you believing you're paying for green energy and you're paying more money for it. But you got to look at the fact that all that power, regardless of where it comes from, a coal plant, a gas fired plant, hydroelectric, wind, whatever, all right, whatever the case may be, it all travels down the same transmission lines. So if you think about this, this is actually one big friggin' scam, because they're paying for green energy, but how do you know you're actually getting green energy at your location? Because it all has to travel down the same power lines. Do they find a way to magically separate electricity out from one source and another source and all that? No, it's all on an interconnected grid. So these people are stupid. They're paying more money when I'm sure would have to jump through a shit ton of hoops to stop, when they should, because it's a scam. This is seriously a scam. It is worth noting that even 5 years after the change, some 80% of the households are still sticking with green electricity, said co-author Dr. Jenny Guinier from ETH Zurich, a public research university in Switzerland's largest city. Did you actually look at the fact and see if the grid is separated out and these people that are getting green energy are actually getting green energy? Of course not, because this is about politics over actual facts. This is about politics and ideology, I should say, over actual facts. This has nothing to do with reality. Oh, excuse me. It was a similar story for small business customers. Several years after the switch, more than 70% were still on the more expensive green tariff. In the case of large companies, which had considerable choice in terms of which energy provider to go with, the vast majority stayed with green energy, even though it was costing them around $2,300 extra per year. I'm going to say it cost them more than that. A large business, yeah, bullshit, cost them more money. They're trying to play this up. You literally have them put people into this thing where they're paying more money for green energy, but all the same energy, whether it's where it's regardless of where it's coming from, travels down the same, transmission grid. And they're trying to make it sound like it's a good thing. Why? Because you're basically charging people more money and you're pushing your green agenda and this 2030 bullshit, taking money out of their pockets. You're finding a way to charge them more money for the same thing that they were paying for. The researchers believe that what they are observing is the surprising power of the default effect. And they think this is a good thing. By forcing someone to go into to having this. It's like, we'll give you a choice. Okay, yeah, we'll give you a choice, but here's the thing. This is what you get stuck with at first. If you want to jump through those 50 hoops over there, then you can switch. Which most people, I'm sure, was like that, because when you have an 80% retention and you don't think common sense is going to prevail, and some Swiss is, some Swiss is going to look at the power lines and go, how do they separate out the windmills from the gas plants down these power lines, and go, why am I paying extra money? You don't think that? I'm sure they realized that was going to happen, and they went, well, we got to make it so it's hard for them to switch back. Which I would bet, if Vegas had, the Vegas bookmakers, okay, if they had to bet on this, I would bet on it and say, yeah, the odds would probably be in my, not great for me to make a profit, but I would bet on it. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a widely known phenomenon in different spheres, such as an organ donation, where laws have changed in many countries so that people have to opt out if they don't want to donate after death. Well, this is the thing that gets me. This is why I said, you know what? They're looking at the fact of we can default people into all these things. And this was kind of like, I'm reading this and I'm going, I might not do the article. And then I read this line right here. And I said, yes, I'm doing this one. Because this is the depravity of these people. They think that they have a right to decide what happens to your body. Okay? Oh, it's so disgusting. They believe that that they can take and harvest your organs. You have no say in that. You have to choose to not do that. I'm sorry, but it should be the other way around. I should have to decide whether or not my organs, when I die, okay, whether they get used or not. That's my choice. But these are the people on the left. Okay, for a woman to murder a baby, an unborn baby, her body, her choice. But if I want to have it so that I go into the ground intact, oh, no, not your body, not your choice. When it comes to your kids, and things like hormone blockers and transitioning, you're their guardian. You're the one that decides what's right for them. And they're going, nope, you're not their guardian or parent. We have the say. If they want to transition at 6, they can do that. And you wonder how the hell we've gotten to this point when they think that they can force you down this route with getting back, circling back around, to where they can decide all these things for you and then force you to pay more money for energy that's being transmitted down power lines for different things and force you into these things. They're getting more and more emboldened with this. It's going to be electricity. Next is going to be what you can buy and consume from the market. They are going to be telling you what you can and can't do. I mean, this is the idea of an HOA on steroids. This is like a condo association on steroids, but it's on a global scale. They're going to be telling you what you can and can't do in your own home. They're going to be telling you what you can and can't do on the note of smoking and drinking and sex and everything else. They're going to try to decide what you can and can't do in your life. It's ridiculous. Anyway, a more mundane example is with double-sided printing, which has become the default in many offices to reduce wastage. However, the authors of the Swiss study were surprised that this effect held up so well with energy, considering the greater costs involved. It held up because you guys rigged the system, so it was probably a pain in the ass, and then some, to switch from the green energy. I would bet the farm on that one. The researchers believe that some of the reluctance to change is down to the human condition. Bullshit. You have to switch to the other cheaper tariff bills actively, said team leader Professor Andrei Diekman from ETH Zurich. And I'm telling you right now, businesses, you have the accountants, the CPAs. If they are not doing something like, okay, we can save this money on electricity, and they're not telling you to go to hell and going to the cheaper one, they should be fired. That's their damn job, to find out the way to get off as cheap as possible in the cost of running that business. They are there to make it so that that business becomes as profitable as possible. So I'm guessing, you know, when you have people that's their job and they're not doing it, they're either incompetent or you've made it near impossible to switch. I mean, logic dictates that. You can do it by email or by a phone call, but many people just don't do it. Oh, you can do it by email or a phone call. Bullshit. I'm guessing it's more like 50 emails, and anyone from the States can attest to this. How much do you want to bet? It's like trying to call Comcast and change your service or something like that, or cancel your service. How much do you want to bet it's like that? Because I would bet the farm on that. Anyone who's ever dealt with Comcast, I'm seriously going to say is going to agree with me on this one. That it's probably like that, because they're using the Comcast tactic. If you don't think they are, you're naive. As well as people's inherent reluctance to tackle the paperwork involved in changing back to fossil fuels, there were other factors at play. See, so now it's more than just a phone call. There's paperwork. How much do you want to bet there is a lot of paperwork? Because I bet you there is. People are a bit overwhelmed because it's a hard topic to actually feel competent to choose your own tariff, said Dr. Grenier. Bull! Excuse me. If I'm there and I'm looking and I'm going, okay, I'm going to pay this much per kilowatt hour and this much per kilowatt hour, I'm going with the cheaper friggin' one. That isn't hard. That's common sense. And you can still feel good because some of that energy comes from green energy. If you're not competent to decide, I want to spend less money, you're an idiot. So if you help them and tell them we're all moving now to renewable energy, they feel okay. It was kind of what they wanted to do anyway. Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. This is such propagandistic bullshit. It's not even funny. Basically, okay, let me translate that. We took a page from Comcast and we sat there and we kept pressuring them and kept pressuring them and kept rambling on, hoping that they would get so frustrated that they wouldn't bother with the switch and they would just deal with it, or they hung up on us and they were still paying more money. That's what that translates to. I think that's what makes default settings stick so much, because we understand that it's the recommended product, like the safe choice. Bullshit! Oh my God. Excuse me? Okay, maybe in software, all right, when you install something on your machine, default settings, okay. But when it comes to you purchasing a product, this idea of equating default settings like it's a computer is a complete misrepresentation so that you can get away with bilking people for the same exact energy they would be getting regardless, if they pay the cheaper rate or the more expensive rate. That's what this comes down to. One of the concerns that suppliers have about green energy tariffs is that customers will increase their overall use of electricity because they feel that it's clean and sustainable. Excuse me, when you're paying more money for electricity and it's eating into your weekly, income to pay your bills, okay, to buy food, all those things, you don't worry about consuming more electricity. You don't care. It's one of those things where you're not caring about if you consume more electricity or not. No, you're going and shut off the light. It's like dealing with my parents as a kid, or anyone who came, like any Gen Xer. I'm sure it goes back with boomers too. Okay. You have your parent. You just walked out of the room. You're going right back in. Like, good example. You're going to get a drink. You say you're in your room. You're going to get a drink. And I'm sure there are those out there that can attest to this because my father was this way. You'd literally be walking out of the room to go walk back in after you went to the fridge. And as you're walking out, turn off that light. It's like, I'm going to be right back in. I don't care. Turn off that light. That's how you're going to be with this. Because you're not going to have a choice because it's eating into you being able to feed yourself, pay your rent, and things like that. Over the 6-year period of the study, the researchers found no evidence of greater consumption among those using renewable power. No, because they're going, oh my God, I'm paying more money. I better find ways to save, cut down on how much I'm using. The authors also believe that moving to a green default setting would have a major impact on carbon dioxide emissions, particularly in countries with a high reliance on fossil fuels, such as the US, China, or Germany. Well, fuck you. All right, why don't you worry about your little corner over there on the UK? All right, worry about Europe and the UK. Stay out of my neck of the woods. Worry about yourselves. All right, BBC? You Swiss researchers, worry about yourselves. And Germany switched over to large amounts of green energy. Oh my God. They want to do the default. Here's the thing. Germany either has feast or famine with electricity generation. They're either screwed and they're buying from outside the country, or they have so much energy and there's such a surplus of it, they're selling it at a loss. Anyway, we made a simulation for Germany with data from 2018, explained Professor Diekman. We figured out that that when all of the companies would do it only for their private customers, the saving was 45 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. That's a big impact, equal to about 5% of all CO2 emissions in Germany. But you leave out the fact that Germany went green friggin' crazy and has this whole situation where they, got rid of other sources of power, nuclear, gas generation, all that, cut those things back, put up all these windmills, and now they're either a feast or famine situation. You leave this out because it doesn't fit your narrative. And it's vile and disgusting because here you are trying to push this going, well, this is better. We'll have people paying more money. You're ignoring the fact that you have both green and non-green energy sources going down the same transmission lines. You're ignoring all these other things as well. And here you are trying to push this as a good thing. Well, screw you. Because I'll tell you right now, I'd be one of the people that would sit there. I don't care how many hoops there were. I would go and find the cheapest damn way to pay my electric bill. I wouldn't stick with paying more money. If you want people to switch over to green energy, you make it cheaper than the fossil fuels. Oh, wait a minute. That would be like the Western non-Keynesian economics way of doing things where you would let the market dictate instead of coming at it from a socialistic approach like you do with Keynesian economics. I mean, this is ridiculous. But would this work if every energy supplier offered a green default? Is there enough green energy to go around? No, there isn't. But hey, let's talk about unicorns and rainbows with our green energy agenda and the politics that we're pushing alongside it. Anyway, the companies we work with, they were also afraid that they would need more renewable energy than they were able to support, said Dr. Guinier. Well, of course they were worried about that. Then they realized all of the power goes down the same transmission lines, and they're getting more money for the same shit they were selling at a cheaper price. And they went, cha-ching! But I think what our study does is help us... I think what our study does is help... I think that's supposed to be help us give you an estimate. Because it says, but I think what our study does is help is to give. Okay, yeah, it's got to be help us. But I think what our study does is help us to give you an estimate of how many customers in your household sector and in your business sector will be likely to stick with green energy. And that will help the companies to actually calculate. And here's the thing. You also ignore the fact that if I choose to go with the mixed one, it's going down the same transmission lines as everyone else on my street paying green. And BBC, proofread. That should be an us, not an is. And you're given this estimate, and it's complete la la land fantasy bullshit, because if I choose not to do green and all my neighbors do green, how are you separating out my non-green power from their green power, or vice versa? You're not. That's why these energy companies went cha-ching. They're like, we get to make like 8% off of households and 14% off of businesses at night, which you know they're probably getting at least the 8% during the day, if not more. They're going cha-ching. We don't have to do anything extra, and we're making that money cha-ching. But they leave that out. Oh, God. But anyway, so like, give it enough household sector and your business, and you can calculate from that bullshit. Dr. Grenier believes the idea should be applicable all over the world. Screw you! Changing people's attitudes and beliefs takes a lot of time, she told BBC News. But we can do this without changing people's belief structures, by just being human. By forcing them into choosing the green option, charging them more, and claiming they're getting green energy, when all this energy, whether it's green or non-green, is going down the same transmission lines. This sounds like a big friggin' scam, if you ask me. This is a scheme. If you tried to propose this in the United States, seriously, this would be like fraud. Because there's no way you're separating out that energy. This would be considered fraud. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is what they're talking about now. They're going to get you to pay for green energy when you're not even getting green energy. This is the twisted, demented world of the left at this point, to push their politics and ideology, people. This is ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, I've covered this well enough. I'm leaving things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.